Hey everyone, welcome to this tutorial on What Are You Doing New Year's Eve, written by Frank Loesser and arranged by Rick Fiesta. First, the usual stuff. The full lesson is split up into several parts, and only the first part will be released on YouTube. For full access, you can check out my website or my Patreon page. Both offer different perks at different pricing points, so there should be something for everyone. If you want the tab annotation file, then do head over to the website, look up the song and click on the music notes icon. That way you'll get a 20% discount. No account or login is necessary to do this. So this is my annual mandatory Christmas song, and I'm happy to announce that we can leave the beaten path and go for a more original tune. There are tons of channels out there doing all I want for Christmas arrangements, and I'm almost happy that they are taking that out of my hands, because this year I can introduce you to another arrangement by Rick Fiesta. You might know Rick from his work on the Eternal Flame arrangement that is already in the lesson catalog. And if you're familiar with this arrangement, then you also know that Rick has great taste and great skill when it comes to putting an arrangement together. So he came up with today's song, which is What Are You Doing New Year's Eve? I was completely unfamiliar with the song, even though it was written in the 1940s, so plenty of time there, and it has been recorded by a whole host of legendary artists. Rick put together this arrangement and he went all out with harmonics in the intro, variations on the verse, a single note solo in the middle, and a very elaborate ending. Now, I do realize that some of you might just want to play a short seasonal song and you don't want to spend weeks learning this. So I'm giving you plenty of options for shortcuts during the lesson. You can play this entire song by only learning the intro, the first verse and the first bridge. That would be a total of about 20 bars of music, which is very doable. Every section after that is built on that foundation, but the arrangement is so well crafted that you will at least want to check out the later parts to see what Rick came up with. Ready? Okay, so let's get things started then. The guitar is in standard tuning. Rick wrote the arrangement without the use of a thumb pick, but I'm going to use one just because I like the sound, and there is one harmonic arpeggio run in there that actually I think sounds better in my case if I use a thumb pick. And that's all you need. No capo, no different tunings, nothing. So let me dive into the intro first, and this is what it sounds like. Here we go. And straight into the first verse. Very moody, straight from the first bar, and the chord shapes aren't too difficult. Almost everything in this arrangement is going to be laid out in the easiest way possible first, and then I'm going to add a few variations to make it more interesting, but it would also make it more difficult. So we start with an open A string, and that A string is going to be used all the way through the intro as a pedal tone. On top of that, we're using these different chord shapes. Open A string, and then 11th fret on the D string, ring finger 11th fret on the D string, index finger 9th fret on the G string, and middle finger 10th fret on the B string. Just a simple A triad on top of an open A bass string. Then you stick to the same position with the index finger and the ring finger, and you just drop this down 2 frets to the 9th fret and the 7th fret, and then you add the pinky to the 10th fret on the B string. Again with an open A bass string underneath. This is just a B minor 7 triad on top of that A bass string. Then back up to the same A chord, but now we are going to drop down a bar with the index finger, so we get the 9th fret on the high E string as well. And then to a G dominant chord with a flat 5 index finger 9th fret on the D string, ring finger 10th fret on the G string, pinky 10th fret on the B string, and middle finger 9th fret on the high E string. Still with an open A string underneath. Then we're going to drop down to a B minor chord shape. In this case, it's really simple, just a bar across 4 strings from the D string to the high E string on the 7th fret. And we're going to start with the ring finger on the 9th fret on the high E string, giving you B minor 9th, again, over an open A string. Then you drop down the index finger to the 6th fret on the D string, just the D string. You add a small bar with the middle finger across the G string, B string, and the high E string on the 7th fret, giving you E dominant 9. And then we're going to add the pinky as well for E dominant 13. Those are the chord shapes. The picking pattern. You start with the index finger on the 7th fret on the G string. You slide up to the 9th fret and then you pick an open E string, same note. You add the chord shape and you strum all across the A string, D string, G string, B string, and high E string. That high E string sounds open. Repick the B string, 10th fret, and then drop down to the 2nd chord shape, B minor, and you do the exact same thing. You strum down, again with an open E string on top. 1, 2, 3, you pick the G string, you pick the B string, and now you're going to keep the ring finger and the pinky on the strings as you slide up 2 frets to the 12th fret and the 11th fret. Now you're not picking the D string, it's still sounding out from the previous note. So you just slide up that unit and you drop down the full A chord with the bar now. We strum down all the way down to the high E string, and now you're fretting the 9th fret on top. G string, E string, and now to the G dominant chord. Again, just strumming down from the A string all the way down to the high E string, and repick the E string on top 2 times as the melody note. Those first 2 bars. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. To the B minor 9th chord. Usually you would fret this with the ring finger on top. I have the habit, and you don't have to copy this, to always play this with the pinky. So do whatever works for you. Pinky or ring finger does not make a difference. In this case, you strum down, again with the A string underneath, and you pull off to the 7th fret with the bar on the high E string. 1, 2, you repick that note, you drop down the pinky on the 10th fret on the B string, you pick once, you pick a second time, and you pull off again to the 7th fret on the bar. 1, 2, 3, 4, back to the high E string, 9th fret, and now do make sure you use the pinky because we're going to drop down the chord shape to the E dominant chord, and you can do that while that top note rings out. With the ring finger, this is a bit more complicated to get to that next chord. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. And now I think in the intro I explained we first did the E dominant chord and then the E13. It's the other way around, so sorry. So you start with that pinky on the 9th fret, then open E string, D string, G string, B string, and then you let go of the pinky and you move to E dominant 9. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. And we end back up in the first bar, now with a triplet. All on the 4th beat, 3, 4, 1. So 9th fret, open E string, back to the 9th fret, back to the first A chord. Those first 4 bars all the way through. upbeat. And now you can play the exact same 4 bars again. I'm going to add 2 variations, one easier one more difficult. If you just want to play the intro plain and simple, then you just repeat the first 4 bars. One more time, you land back on the big E chord and you're ready to launch into the verse. Now, if you want to add a variation, you start with that triplet and then the same A chord, same B minor chord, same slide up, and now on the A chord with the bar, we're going to play a chromatic line down while keeping down the rest of the chord. So you start with the basic A chord, remove the middle finger, pick the 9th fret on the bar on the B string, and now with the pinky to the 12th fret on the G string to the 11th fret, and then we drop down to our G dominant chord again. 1, 2, 3, 4. On the G chord, no changes. And then we head back over to our B minor 9th chord and we're going to add harp harmonics. If you've never done this before, then this might be a challenge for everybody who is used to doing this. This is a pretty classic pattern. So we have a small bar here and we're going to mirror the left hand 12 frets up. So that means we're here on the 7th fret. So we are going to aim for the 19th fret up here. Aiming for the 19th fret right on top of the fret, lightly with the index finger and pluck with the thumb pick underneath. This is why I'm using a thumb pick, makes the harmonics sound a little bit brighter. So I'm going to start with just strumming through that chord and then aiming for the 19th fret on the G string. And I'm going to pick with the ring finger the high E string and pull off with the pinky to the 7th fret. That is the move. You can do the same thing with the ring finger in the fretting hand. Then to the 19th fret on the D string, and I'm going to pick the B string while holding down the chord shape here. Same thing on the A string, harmonic, and then pick the G string, then pick the E string, harmonic, and then pick the D string. So the whole run, back to front, chord, harmonic on the G string, D string, A string, E string, and then once you end up on that plucked note on the D string, you move down the chord shape to the E dominant chord, dropping down the index finger to the 6th fret and keeping the middle finger on the 2nd fret. Again, now we're going to have harmonics all on the 19th fret except for the D string. So now you're going to have 19th fret, 19th fret, 18th fret, so you have to drop down to the 18th fret because the same thing happens here. So 19th fret, 19th fret, 18th fret, 19th fret, 19th fret, and somewhere along the line in that arpeggio we're going to add the ring finger to the 8th fret as well. So we have to jump up to the 20th fret for the very last one. Starting on the E dominant chord, harmonic on the E string, 17th fret, and you pluck the G string. Then harmonic on the A string, and you pluck the B string. Harmonic on the D string, so you drop down to the 18th fret. You pluck the E string, and you hammer on to the 8th fret with the left hand, with the fretting hand. And now it's all harmonics, 19th fret, 19th fret, 20th fret, and that is where the harmonic run ends. So only the harmonic run on the E chord. And you try to keep the flow of every single note as even as possible. And as soon as you start speeding up, don't lose that evenness. That is what it's all about. As soon as you get longer and shorter notes, it's going to mess up the overall effect. Starting from the B minor chord. Switch chord shapes. that would be the full run. A little bit more up to speed. And it's perfectly okay to speed up slightly in the beginning and to lay it down at the end, but the overall flow should be even. So you start with the big chord. And then open E string, second fret to the open A string, ready to dive into the verse. That was the full intro, so let me play it one time. The easiest way possible, just repeating those 4 bars all the way through a second time. That's going to be the easy intro. And then one more time with all the options using the harmonics and the different fills. So this is what you get when you play the intro the easiest way possible. And now I did keep that little chromatic run in the middle there. If you don't want to do that, then you can skip even that. Just play the same thing exactly twice. Now onto the version with the harmonics. One time, last time through the intro. Here we go. And straight into verse number 1. So that was part 1. I didn't intend to cut the lesson here, but the explanation on that harmonic run was a bit longer than expected. For people watching on YouTube, if you want to keep going, then please switch over to my Patreon page or my website for full access to the rest of the lesson. I'll see you there. And to all of you, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.